Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Rashad Evans to defeat Lyoto Machida. And I am here to break down UFC Shanghai, Walker versus Zhang. Okay, opening up the card, we have Satybaldiev versus Dr. Nurgozhay. My prediction for this fight is Dr. Nurgozhay wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And I have no confidence in that prediction whatsoever. I have even less confidence than I do in the pronunciation of their names that I just gave you, which, by the way, was way the fuck off. I can tell you without having given it much thought. But yeah, I'm going to favor DR, and it's really because he's the underdog, I guess. But he's also looked good coming into the UFC. I just think he looked worse in his UFC debut, getting beaten up and finished against Brenison Hibiero, getting finished with a Kimura. And that was a Kimura from the guard as well. And Satybaldiev, his one loss is forgivable on paper because even though it's to a guy who the UFC cut, it's to Martin Buday, who they cut with a 7-1 record in the UFC. So, no shame there. Martin Buday, I don't think he would have won the title, but he's still one of the bigger question marks now in the heavyweight division. But look, both guys did not look great in their debuts, and I do think DR looked worse. But I think DR here is going to be up against a guy that's more manageable than Brenison Hibiero. Brenison Hibiero, I think, is more dangerous altogether than Satybaldiev, and he's also more well-rounded. I think he's got more to offer on the ground, even though Satybaldiev's got one submission victory, and it's a nice third-round Kimura in his last fight as well over Leon Soros, his last victory before coming to the UFC. So with DR's one loss being a second round Kimura to Brenison Hibiero, yeah, there's enough doubt in my prediction. But I'm still going to go with DR. DR, he's gotten two nice finishes coming into the UFC. The Contender Series, he knocked out Bartosz, whatever, with a nice head kick and punches. And it's really punches and a head kick and then punches. And Emiliano Sordi, he knocked him out before that. That guy, he's definitely not looking to have too much of a future in MMA now, but he's had an awesome career, and that's a good victory. And the two fights before that were hard-earned decisions, 5 rounds and 3 rounds. And these are against decent competition, and he was able to outlast these guys and mix in takedowns as well and not get Kimura'd. Is that? But yeah, Satybaldiev, he impressed me too. He got a really nice round 4 finish over Bruno Aziz, who's one of the guys that beat Jailton Almeida before he got to the UFC. Bruno Aziz is a good fighter, and Bruno Aziz was having his way with Iran. He took him down, put him in the mount, almost arm triangle choked him, and then he put him in a triangle choke about 17 times over the course of the next few rounds. Wasn't able to close the show, and then he got too tired, and Iran shucked off a little half-assed triangle attempt in round 4, mounted him, and put him away. That's a luxury he's not afforded, outlasting someone in championship rounds here. He's starting at the ground floor, and he's going to be fighting 3-round fights, but it's still good to see him fight that kind of fight. He did also go 5 rounds in the past, winning over this guy, Vladimir Selaverstov, whatever. I don't know why I commit to the names when I have no idea how to pronounce it. But he won that fight by the skin of his teeth. And I actually thought that guy outlasted him and performed better down the stretch. It was just by performing better, I mean, he kind of smothered him in the clinch. It was a grindy, grueling clinch fight. He was out wrestling him early on, I think, and then the wrestling fell off. And then eventually the clinch strength fell off. But he had done enough where he held on for a decision victory. But again, that's not a concern here in a 3-round fight. But yeah, both guys, they look good coming in. They look a little worse now being 0-1. And even though Satybaldiev, I think, had the more forgivable loss in his UFC debut, I'm going to go with Dr. Nurgozhay. I think Dr. Nurgozhay is a little more dangerous. I think he can get the better of on the feet. Is a longer, taller guy, but I think Dr. just puts it together a little better. I think his strikes will mean more, maybe becoming a little faster. And even though Dr. certainly looks more vulnerable on the ground, I could say Uran's looked vulnerable in the past, again, with the Bruno Aziz fight recently. And I do think Dr. Nurgozhay can mix it up and hit takedowns, and he's shown he can do it down the stretch. And I'm picking him to secure a victory here, and I'll go with it happening by decision. The odds aren't available yet, but he is an underdog. I'll probably be tempted to bet on him, but if I do, it won't be anything serious. Because again, this is a fight where I'm not too confident in fucking anything. Or Long Xiao. My prediction for this fight is Xiao Long wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by razor thin decision. I think this is going to be close. And yes, obviously, I'm not too strongly passionate about this prediction, and I don't think I'm going to be betting on it. However, I will look for his point spread. I think the underdog's point spread will be worth it here because I think Su Young Yu could win by crowding him and taking him down. But the basis for my prediction with Long Zhao winning the decision is despite Su Young Yu probably winning round one, I think Zhao Long wins round three. I think he's definitely the more seasoned guy. He's got a lot more experience, twice the experience, exactly twice the experience. And I think Zhao Long is the more proven round three fighter. Su Young Yu, despite looking good in the UFC so far, he's slowed down a bit. He slowed down on the road to UFC in the semifinals against the guy Jamatabazi Damadadozi. That guy he beat by split decision, but he slowed down in a big way in round three. And I also thought he slowed down when he got TKO'd against the guy Dostin Amangaldi. That was the last time he was beaten. That was in 2023, a little under 2 years ago. But yeah, he was put away in round three. And even though he's gotten some good wins since then, he's still a guy that I have doubt about in round three. And Long Zhao, he's already proven in the UFC that he can hang in there in round three, push through exhaustion, and even find a finish. He knocked out Kwang Lee in his last fight in round three. And his fight before that against Chang Ho Lee, it was a razor thin split decision. But even though he was visibly exhausted, he fought through it. And I thought round three was close. And yeah, I like Long Zhao to fare better down the stretch. He had these two fights, that guy Shuya Kamakubo, that it's a majority decision, I believe, because round three was a 10-8 round for Zhao Long in that fight. He was hurting him, taking it to him after being taken down and crowded early. And then in round two, it was a close round, but he ended up winning it, and he ended up winning a majority decision. But he had a really strong third round. And yeah, his one loss before that, as you see, the most recent loss was to Christian Quinones, who I think is still in the UFC. But yeah, I'm going with Zhao Long. I think this is going to be a close fight. I think Su Young Yu is in general the better grappler, but Zhao Long is in general the better fighter. And I think first round is going to be a grappling round for Su Young Yu, and after that, MMA is going to take over, and Zhao Long wins a decision. That's the prediction. I won't look to cover that specifically with a bet, but like I said, I'm going to look to play the point spread. I think the point spread covers a lot, and Zhao Long at plus points, that'll work for me. Jia Yi versus Weston Wilson. My prediction for this fight is Jia Yi wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by round two submission. And I may try to cover that prediction with a bet, but if I do, it'll be just so I can make the money back that I had already wasted on Weston Wilson on Wednesday, probably. But yeah, I'm going to wait for the props to drop. I bet on Weston Wilson, but My real play, my real sprinkle and waste of money on him will be on his submission line. And I think he's got not a favorable matchup. I'm picking him to lose the submission battle, but he's got a favorable matchup in the sense that his chin is not at risk. He's a guy who's been finished actually 4 times by submission, which is still a concern, obviously, but 3 times by knockout, and they're in his most recent losses, his most recent 3 losses, as I try to pull up his record and race myself here. He lost to Jean Silva, Joe Anderson Brito, and Teruto Ishihara. He's also 36 years old. So, in general, a guy getting knocked out 3 times in the last 3 years, and a guy who's now closer to 40 than he is to 30, that's a guy with a bad chin, just on paper. And I think it is. But those guys are also in another realm compared to Jia. Jia, he is not nearly as dangerous as these guys. No offense if you're watching Jia. But still, the concern will be there moving forward with Weston Wilson, and it'll really be there in most matchups. But in here, I think in general, his chin is not so much at risk. And on those grounds alone, I consider this more favorable for Weston Wilson. I think he's fighting a guy who's going to be trying to go through him on the ground. Although I don't know. I'm sure he's seen the knockout losses as of late, and maybe he'll be trying to go through his chin. But Weston Wilson, I think, on the feet, is going to be able to hang with Jia early on. Weston Wilson's the longer, taller guy. He's like, I don't know, 5 inches taller or whatever, and he's got a few inches of reach. And he's got a karate style, which can really be a problem when, without the height and reach, just as a jousting attack. But I do think that is not going to be something he can do for 15 minutes. I think Jia is going to be able to crowd him, maybe catch a kick or catch him when he's standing sideways and just tackle him. But I think this will end up in a grappling match eventually. And Weston Wilson there is incredibly dangerous. He's got all finishes. He's got 17 finishes in his MMA career, in his 17 victories, but 12 of them come by submission. And of course, the best of which, and the one that has the most meaning by far, is in his UFC win over Jacob Saragi, who he got out of there with a triangle armbar last year, which I fucking love to see. And yeah, here I'm picking him to get submitted. I'm picking him to not be able to go through Jia on the ground and for Jia to kind of beat him up and out MMA him. But certainly in round one, these guys hit the mat. I think Weston Wilson is a problem. He's a problem for a lot of fighters on the ground. He may not be the best overall grappler, and he's not going to win the competitions and the whole methodical jiu-jitsu game. But he's dangerous. He's a submission artist. And of course, he's really comfortable off his back. But he has also been tapped out 4 times, the last of which comes over 4 years ago to this guy Carson Frey. And before that, he had 3 other ones. This guy Andrew Tennyson, big fucking question mark, that guy. A lot of potential. He got him with a Gogo Plata, which is astounding. But yeah, even though those losses, the submission defense hasn't come back to haunt him in a while, I think here he's fighting a UFC fighter. And when the going gets tough, I'm picking him to win by submission, Jia. He's a guy who's only been submitted once himself in his 5 losses, and it was a heel hook to this guy, Chumbo Yuan. Got him with a heel hook back in 2018. And a heel hook is probably the deadliest submission. I'm sure there's others that can do more damage, but the heel hook is the first one that comes to mind for me as a fucking novice. And yeah, there's no shame in tapping to a heel hook. That's his one submission loss, and every other submission on his record is a win. 13 submission wins in his 25 altogether. So I think that's how this one's going to play out. He's not so dangerous on the feet, Jia, but I just think he's cleaner altogether over the course of 15 minutes once that karate shit wears off. And I really like his traits. He showed great traits both in the Zhang Yang Li fight and in the Gabriel Santos fight, where Gabriel Santos, who I think is a really good fighter, was taking it to him. And Zhang, I think, fared much better, I should say, than I would expect Weston Wilson to fare under those circumstances. I think Weston Wilson gets his lights shut out. So yeah, Zhang, I think altogether he's got more going on MMA wise, and I'm expecting him to outlast Weston Wilson and shuck off some submission attempts maybe, and then go through him on the ground. Like I said, Weston Wilson is the play here. He's a gigantic uh, underdog right now. It's plus 750, so it's come down. But he still has no business being plus 750 against Yi Jia or Jia Yi, however you feel about that. All right. We have Michel Pereira taking on Kyle Daukaus, who's returning to the UFC after a few years off. He was fighting, but still, he's back in the UFC now. My prediction here is Michel Pereira wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by TKO in round one. And I'm not too confident in that prediction. I mean, he's still Michel Pereira. He's got a lot of danger. He moves very well, especially for a middleweight. But I haven't liked the way he's looked since he lost all of his momentum. Of course, Fluffy Hernandez could be the world champion within a year, so there's no shame in losing to him. Or an Abus Magomedov, who beat him in his last fight. But especially in the Magomedov fight, I just expected more from Michel Pereira. I didn't think he adjusted, didn't think he dug deep, and I thought he was cruising to a decision loss there. But Kyle Daukaus is a guy who I thought looked really good. I mean, I thought he had a ton of potential when he first came to the UFC. And he lost to Brendan Allen by decision. But I knew Brendan Allen was good back then, and that was a war. And I thought he gave him a really good fight, and even in the end, matched his grappling. But obviously, he didn't match it because he lost a decision. But that was a good performance, and I had a really high estimation of Kyle Daukaus. And then after that, he beat Dustin Stoltzfus, which may not have meant so much 5 years ago, but Stoltzfus has proven he's here to stay. And I thought that was a good look. And then since then, lost to Phil Hawes. It's there's no shame in that. With an iron chin, just like with Aaron Pico, with an iron chin, Phil Hawes would be the fucking greatest fighter who ever lived. But then I'm not even going to talk about the Kevin Holland fight, even though whatever. But he lost 2 fights on his way out of the UFC. He got his face smashed in against Roman Dolidze, and then he came back 6 months later and got pounded into fatigue by Eric Anders. Eric Anders beat him down. And that's not a great loss. I know Eric Anders, he's a veteran, and I love Eric Anders, but even 3 years ago, that wasn't the best loss, and it seemed like a pivotal loss for Kyle Daukaus, and he was cut from the UFC. Since then, he's gone on a 4-fight winning streak, got his first knockout in his last fight as well. Not that I expect him to get the knockout here, but good for him. And beat some good guys, got another Darce choke, which that is definitely his move. I mean, I'm sure he can strangle with a rear naked choke as well, but he's got a good Darce. And I just think in this matchup, if he was able to get on top of Michel Pereira, not only would he have a chance at finishing him, of course, but he is so good and strong on top, I think he would fatigue Michel Pereira. He may not do it like Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, but I think it would really help him take over this fight to the point where I could see him winning a decision or a late submission if he's able to get that takedown early. I'm picking against him because Michel Pereira has also looked fantastic at times and much more recently. And of course, I think Michel Pereira is going to be a really difficult guy to corner in the first place, let alone take down. He's got excellent takedown defense, and Kyle Daukaus is not the best overall wrestler, but he's overall better on the ground. He is the Darce Knight. And I think even though Michel Pereira has only ever been submitted once, and it was over a decade ago, I don't think he's got anything on the ground for Kyle Daukaus. Although I should say, he could totally submit him with like a standing fucking ninja choke or whatever. Michel Pereira knows submissions, and he is built like a fucking tank. So yeah, he can definitely submit Kyle Daukaus, even though Daukaus has never been submitted before. But yeah, Daukaus is the better grappler, and I think he's got a lot going on down there, but it's tough to get there in the first place. And against Michel Pereira, not only is it going to be tough to corner him and get him down, but he's going to have to deal with a much more dangerous striker and a guy who's flowy and dances. But he moves so much better. He moves so well, and he's such a sharper athlete. I think he's going to be beating Kyle to the punch, and he's going to be having to move well because I'm sure Kyle's going to be trying to get in his face. But yeah, I've got Michel Pereira winning early. Maybe smashing his face in like Roman Dolidze did, or maybe going to the body where Michel Pereira is just as deadly. That's the prediction. I haven't bet on Michel Pereira. I'm tempted to bet on Kyle Daukaus, but I'm going to wait for the props and see what to do. Maybe I'll waste money in every different fucking direction here. Zhu. And my prediction for this fight is Rong Zhu wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And the basis for the prediction is I expect this one to be close. I'm really sure this one's going the distance. But I think Zhu Rong is going to have the more meaningful moments. Certainly, if anybody's going to get big moments on the feet, they're going to go to Zhu Rong. But Austin Hubbard is really tough. Both guys, neither guy has ever been truly knocked out. So I think the power advantage for Zhu Rong is going to have to produce the small moments as well. I think his strikes will mean a little more if the volume's even remotely close, and I think it will be. I've got Zhu Rong having the victory with the more meaningful strikes. So that's how I see this fight. Austin Hubbard is a 15-minute fighter. He's definitely a guy who can grind, but he's not the most imposing guy. And that's why he's lost some close fights. He doesn't have that pop in his punches. I don't think he's even got knockdown power at the UFC level. And he also is lacking in physical strength. He's not the most imposing guy when he wants to be. He's a guy who can try to mix up takedowns, especially down the stretch, and change things up. But he doesn't have that extra bit of strength to really make that more of a thing. So, and that's also why he's not a good finisher at all. I mean, his only path to victory is decision. So, him as an underdog or whatever, if you're looking to play his odds, and I might, you play decision. But in general, I think I'll be looking for the over and maybe the point spread altogether here, because I do think the decision will go to Zhu Rong. I think even if it's close, Zhu Rong's power should definitely give him an advantage here. Zhu Rong, he's technically been TKO'd once, and it was in his last fight, his last loss to Chris Padilla, and that's not a real knockout. He was winning that fight. I thought he was doing very well, and he got his head split open right down the middle with an elbow. So that's that. He's been submitted a few times, Zhu Rong. He's been submitted 4 times. But the only time he's been submitted in the last 8 years or whatever, 7, 8 years, has been against Ignacio Bahamondes in round 3 with a Darce choke. And there's no shame there. Ignacio is an awesome fighter. I do think if Austin Hubbard was to get any sort of a finish at all, it would be a round 3 finish and more likely a submission, in my opinion, than a TKO. But I still don't think Zhu Rong should be getting finished at all here. I think if he lets Hubbard sneak into the volume battle, he can lose a decision. But in general, Zhu Rong, I favor to win here. I think he can keep Austin Hubbard off of him, and I think his strikes will just mean more. He's coming off a big win over Cody Steele, which was a big win for MMA Al Dente as well. And yeah, in general, I think he's got a lot of momentum since returning to the UFC. Again, despite his last loss to Chris Padilla. So yeah, I'm going with Rong Zhu. Oh shit. Since I started this video, the over-under is available. And the over is set at minus 250 over 2.5 rounds. That's not enticing, but that would be my play of all 4 lines available here. Rong Zhu minus 265. I think far and away his path to victory. Primary path is a decision against Austin Hubbard. And likewise, same for Austin Hubbard. So yeah, minus 250 over 2.5 rounds. Right now, that would be the play. Not that I've played it because I didn't even know about it till 14 seconds ago. But yeah, the point spread, the decision props, all that horse shit I'm going to wait for. But the prediction is Rongju wins, and I've got him winning by decision. Next up, we have Kavanaugh taking on Charles Johnson. My prediction here is Charles Johnson wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And the basis for the prediction is fuck it. I'm a Charles Johnson kind of guy. So I'm going with Charles Johnson. I do think, of course, he is a round 3 fighter. Not that he's never lost a round 3, but typically he's the last man standing. And I'm counting on that being an advantage here. And I also think he's fighting a guy who's not likely to out wrestle him, not thoroughly anyway. Kavanaugh's showing he can mix in wrestling and make that a big part of his game plan, but I think he would have to. I don't think he's going to be good enough to dominate Charles Johnson like fucking Cody Durden. And I think trying to force that kind of fight could bite Kavanaugh in the ass. And Charles Johnson, just about nothing's going to stop him from coming alive in round 3. So he needs to win one round before that, and I've got him winning a decision in my head. But yeah, Charles Johnson, he's tough as all fuck. He's never been finished. He's got 7 losses, all by decision, going right into the UFC here. The closest he's come to getting finished was probably against Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval is one of the best, most dangerous fighters in the world, and Brandon took it to him, and Charles took everything he had, kept fighting, and outlasted Brandon in that fight, but still lost the decision, as he's accustomed to doing. Yeah, a lot of his decision losses, he is the better man in the end. And, it is what it is. He's not fighting 5-round fights. He's got to make those adjustments and do so with tactics because this is another 3-rounder. But yeah, I think Charles, if he can mix in his wrestling, which he does have wrestling, even though it's his primary vulnerability as a fighter, it is still an asset of his, and I think that can definitely be used against Kavanaugh here. But Kavanaugh, he's got a perfect record, and there's no real stain at all. I mean, obviously, there's no real stain on his record with no losses, but he's looked really good in competitive fights going into the UFC, and he's looked good down the stretch as well, taking back round 3 after a competitive fight with Jose Ochoa, who I know he doesn't have the prettiest UFC record, but that guy's a good fighter, and I think he's here to stay. He's also shown he's got knockout power, knocking out the guy in the Contender Series, spinning back kick in round 3 here. He's shown he can go the distance from the beginning, round 3 finishes. He's got a lot going on, Kavanaugh. Very impressive young fighter. But his only path to victory is out hustling Charles Johnson. He's going to have to work for 15 minutes here. And I think Charles Johnson separates himself from the other guys he's fought by being a better cardio fighter. Guy's a workhorse. And the guy's also, despite, again, his wrestling vulnerabilities, he's also capable of making that a problem for Kavanaugh. So I'm going with Charles Johnson. Right now, his odds have jumped here. I bet on him at shittier odds because I'm a moron. But yeah, the odds there are worth it. But really, what I'll be looking to play is his point spread, which hopefully is a nice number that reflects his growing money line here, his underdog money line. But Charles Johnson, he's almost guaranteed to not get finished, and it's just as much of a guarantee that he's going to win a round, and that would be round 3. So the point spread will be how I'll look to play Charles Johnson largely as an underdog, even though, again, he is an underdog. But I've also got his money line, and he is the pick, Charles Johnson. Zhang taking on Maheshate. My prediction for this fight is Gage Young wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And the basis for the prediction is, even though he's fighting Maheshate in his home country, I think Gage Young is still going to outwork Maheshate. Gage Young has a lot of good traits as a fighter, and even though Maheshate has fought the better competition and he's been hurt a little more, he's the guy whose chin I have more doubt in, Maheshate, despite him being the guy who knocked out Steve Garcia earlier in his UFC career, which is still an incredible victory. But I think, I'm not saying that's a fluke, but I think he's unlikely to be knocking guys dead like that moving forward. And Gage Young has never been knocked out. He was TKO'd as an amateur, and it was on the ground in round 3 against this guy, Ashton Kirby. But as a pro, he's looked really fucking tough. He's been out wrestled and he's been outstruck. And I think Maheshate, who's unlikely to take him down at all, can outstrike him. But I still expect Gage to be bringing the pressure and putting up the better numbers. Maheshate, like I said, he's unlikely to wrestle. And Gage Young is actually a wrestler first and foremost. It's one of those things where you could probably watch his whole career and go, really? Like a Chris Lytle. I didn't know Chris Lytle was a state champion wrestler until like a year ago. But yeah, Gage Young was a wrestler first and foremost, but he's definitely very comfortable playing the striker here, even though he's given up 3 inches of height. The reach is pretty close, but I still think his toughness will be there for him. And I think once he starts connecting with Maheshate, he's going to slow him down and keep advancing. Maheshate, I've got a little bit of doubt in his durability. He was knocked out against Slavakaus in round 2 2 years ago. Slavakaus, despite not having a lot of momentum right now, he is a fucking killer on the feet, and he really brings it like few others. He was also knocked around against Nicholas Mota. Nicholas Mota had some big moments in that fight, put him on the canvas. Nicholas Mota, despite his own vulnerabilities with his own chin, he is a very dangerous guy. This guy, Achilles Equimadaria, or whatever his name is, I thought he was going to take Maheshate out. He definitely had him hurt in a big way in that fight. Of course, Maheshate battled his way back and reclaimed control of that fight. And I think he's definitely in the realm of winning this one. I just have to favor Gage Young with the way he's looked lately, Maheshate. Even that fight with Gabriel Benitez, who was subsequently cut from the UFC. I think he doesn't have a lot of momentum. And Gage Young, despite being thoroughly outpointed, out wrestled, especially against Quillan Salkilled, and being outstruck mainly by Evan Elder, I still think he's got a lot of good traits as a fighter, and I think here they're going to carry him to a victory. I think it'll be close. I expect it to go the distance. I like the over in this fight more than I like Gage Young's money line, minus 130 versus minus 166. I think it'll be a close fight that goes the distance. So, yeah, the over is the play now that both odds are available, but the pick is Gage Young. I've got him outworking Maheshate, overcoming that reach, and winning a decision. Taiyalake. My prediction for this fight is Taiyalake wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by TKO in round 2. Basis for the prediction is he's really dangerous. I think he's going to be a lot quicker than Kiefer Crosbie. Kiefer's powerful, and he'll be getting in Taiyalake's face. But I think considering the danger of Taiyalake and the vulnerabilities of Kiefer Crosbie, I've got to go with Taiyalake putting him away with strikes. Even though Kiefer Crosbie has largely been put away with submissions as both a pro and as an amateur. He's definitely a submittable guy. But Taiyalake has only got one submission. And even though it is a very recent victory, it was like 2 fights ago, it's still not the greatest submission. And in my opinion, it was kind of given to him. Taiyalake was, the guy was sitting in a Kimura with a wide open half guard, and Taiyalake spun around very slowly and armbarred him, straight out of Sakuraba's playbook. But yeah, even though that's a nice move and a counter and whatever, I don't think he's got the deepest skill set on the ground. But Kiefer Crosbie is still submittable, so it may go down like that. Yeah, Crosbie was submitted in his first 2 UFC fights. Kevin Jusay, who I think has been cut from the UFC since then. But you say not known as much of a submission artist, but he's a judoka first and foremost, and he was able to go through him with a rear naked choke. And then Sam Patterson, who is a round 1 monster and a very capable fighter, was able to get him out of there with an arm triangle choke. In the past, he's been submitted as well. Georgi Karakanian. I used to know how to say his name, but one of the best fighters in Bellator for probably over 5 years. Georgie was able to get him out of there with another arm triangle choke in round one. And then he was disqualified against this guy, Mike Jackson, not the guy who beat CM Punk. But yeah, his losses as an amateur, he's got a few by submission here as well, and a few TKO losses as well. I wasn't able to see this one to James Duckett, but this one here to Paul Lawrence, I did see. And what the fuck happened there? I believe he was put away. Oh no, he was clipped. He was pounded out. He was hit with a shot, I think, to the body. A knee to the body might have done it. It was a shitty angle, but then he got put away on the ground right after that. So yeah, something happened there, and something happened here with this guy James Duckett, who beat him a minute and 42 seconds into the fight with a TKO. Those are 10 years ago, but when I'm picking him to lose by TKO, I've got to look for everything. But I do think, yeah, he's going to be a little slower than Taiyalake. Kiefer Crosbie's going to be trying to get in his face. Kiefer does have good pop in his punches, and he can bring volume too. But I think Taiyalake is going to move better, hit harder, and eventually overwhelm him. Taiyalake is the pick. He is not the bet, as he is almost a 4-1 favorite, and the over under is set right about just about right, 1.5 rounds. I'm going with a round two finish, but yeah, I'd be inclined to go with the under. I do think it ends in under a round and a half, but I'm not married to it. Maybe I'll wait for the props. Maybe I'll sit it out. But either way, the UFC newcomer Taiyalake is the pick. Okay, next up we have Kevin Borjas versus Sue Madaerji. My prediction for this fight is Sue Madaerji wins. And I'm going to go with him winning by decision, even though he's definitely getting the first knockout, in my opinion, in this matchup. And that is part of the basis for me picking him to win. But yeah, method of victory, I'll go decision. And I think the decision would be close. I think these guys are both going to give each other a striking fight. And I think Kevin Borjas looked really sharp against Ronaldo Rodriguez. And here he'll be able to put up good numbers. But I think Sumaderji is the more dangerous guy and also the more durable guy, if we're talking just chins. And I also think, of course, he's got the crowd on his side cheering for every strike. So, yeah, I'm favoring Sumaderji altogether. But yeah, Sumaderji, he's got some major vulnerabilities as well. He's got 7 losses, 6 of which come by submission. And you'd hear me harping on that in other Sumaderji breakdowns, but not so much this one. I don't think Kevin Borjas is likely to cash in on the submission defense. Borjas has submissions, but every one of them is as an amateur. He's got triangles and arm bars and heel hooks, and he does know how to grapple. At least he once did. But as a pro, things have pretty much gone one way, and he is a striker. But yeah, Sumaderji, it's been good guys that have gotten him out of there with submissions. And he's not a total fish out of water on the ground himself. He's got subs. He's only got one as a professional, but he's got a ground game as well. I bring that up to say he might have a better ground game than Kevin Borjas, for all I know. It's not like either one of them is really standing out as a submission artist. But the guy who's been more vulnerable down there historically is Sumaderji, despite him fighting much better competition. Kevin Borjas, he's got 3 losses, one by TKO or knockout, one by submission, and one by decision. He lost to this guy Renzo Mendez in Combate back in 2019. That was a round 2 rear naked choke. Kevin Borjas was not able to close a show after hurting Renzo early in the fight, and then Renzo clipped Kevin Borjas and then eventually put him away on the ground. But his chin got the ball rolling there. And his chin also failed him against Alessandro Costa in his last loss. I don't know where Costa's been. He's got to get back. But yeah, Alessandro Costa is an excellent fighter, and Kevin Borjas was able to keep up until he wasn't. His chin failed him, and yeah, another round 2 defeat. And of course, against Joshua Van, he didn't get knocked out, but he had the Joshua Van thing happen where he won round one against Van, like everyone else does, but then he lost rounds 2 and 3, like everyone else does. And Joshua Van took over. No shame there because Van is fighting for the title soon. But yeah, with the way he looked against Ronaldo Rodriguez and knowing the kind of matchup he's likely to get from Madaerji, Kevin Borjas is very much in the realm of winning this fight. But I've got to favor Madaerji. Again, Kevin Borjas' chin has been responsible for 2 of his 3 losses. And I think Madaerji is a very potent finisher. He's got 13 knockouts in his 17 victories. We haven't seen so much of it in the UFC since he knocked out Malcolm Gordon. And against Matt Schnell, he knocked him out like 6 times before getting submitted. But that's a thing. He's been getting submitted because he's been fighting better fighters, fucking Tim Elliott and whoever else. I'm going with Madaerji. I think this is a favorable matchup for him. Both guys are getting a striking fight. And I may be wrong about the prediction, but I think Madaerji gets the first knockout and has a good shot at winning the decision. So he's definitely the pick. I have bet on the under, even though I'm not married to knockout, obviously. But I have bet on the under because it's under 2.5 rounds at plus 200. This just dropped today. I said, yeah, fuck it. Let me ruin a parlay with that. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Madaerji, I don't expect him to get submitted here, but still, he's only lost 1 decision. And Madaerji's money line, I've also bet on before the over-under was available. And of course, that covers everything. I think he's getting the first knockout, and I think he has a good shot at winning the decision. So I'm happy with the bets. Pavlovich taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. My prediction here is Sergey Pavlovich wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And I'm not too confident in the prediction, but I am definitely even less confident in the method of victory. Because let's face it, it's a pretty stupid prediction, him winning a decision. But that's what I'm going with, and the basis for the prediction is I do feel like the Tom Aspinall fight may have changed Sergey Pavlovich. He's still every bit as powerful as he once was, but I think he's not as willing to step into the fire after being knocked out against Tom Aspinall. And I feel like it's no coincidence that both fights since then, a victory and a defeat, have gone the distance, which is rare for Sergey Pavlovich, who's only got 5 decisions in his 22 victories, and 2 of them are in his most recent fights. Of course, I know he won a 5-round decision years back. He can go the distance, but at the UFC level, he's been a killer and pretty much a round 1 killer for his whole career there. And then he ran into Tom Aspinall, and things slowed down. But that could be a good thing, especially if his chin is a major problem. Who knows? Might be a major problem, certainly going to be put to the test against heavyweights, but it's good for him to mix in his grappling. Not that he's Mr. Grappler, but he's still a big, gigantic heavyweight, and he's bigger than Waldo, and I think if he gets on top, he's definitely going to score whatever points there are to be scored on the ground. And I don't picture him going through Waldo, certainly not with the submission. Ground and pound as always possible. But I think it'd be difficult for Waldo to handle him and maneuver him underneath him. Waldo, he's never been knocked out as a pro, but he was knocked out as a boxer. I've seen 2 of them, I believe. One of them wasn't such a legitimate knockout, whatever happened there, but it was a stoppage. But another one was a knockout. I know this is boxing and it's years ago, but we're talking about Sergey Pavlovich here, so I may as well, talk about his chin. Yeah, Waldo's chin has failed him before, and it's certainly possible it happens here. But it's not like his chin hasn't been put to the test again in the UFC, and it's passed every test so far. Not that he's won every fight. Marcos Rogerio de Lima beat him, but he still stood tall. Even in that fight, getting his ass kicked truly for the first time, he was able to make it to the final bell. He also showed he could grapple, which of course he can. He got a nice Kimura victory early in his career over Edison Lopez. But in general, the only grappling we've seen him do was this fight against Rebelis de Spain, which was a really good victory. turned out not to mean much in the end. But I loved seeing the boxer mix it up there. And yeah, Pavlovich being a guy who was knocked out, he's still in danger here of getting knocked out. Waldo may not be the most dangerous guy inside the UFC, only knocking out Dreshki and Span, I think. But he does have good 6 knockouts. Almost half his wins are knockouts. And he's another 265-pound boxer. Yeah, he can get it done by knockout. But I'm going with Sergey. I think Sergey is going to be able to bully him on the feet. I think if they do mix it up and collide and put their chins on the line, I still do favor Sergey in that battle. But the real prediction, the reason I'm going with him winning a decision, is because I think he doesn't have much faith in his chin. And I think he's going to be looking to protect that and slow this fight down. And he knows, even though Waldo Cortez has mixed it up with fucking Rebellis Despain and Giant Silva and whoever else, Sergey is going to be the bigger bully on the ground. And he's going to be the guy to score the points there. So I'm taking Sergey to slow things down instead of speed him up, but still find a victory. I haven't bet on him, but his money line is enticing. I feel like it's come down from where it was. And it, of course, covers every path to victory. So that's probably how I'll go. The over-under, yeah, it's still favored to go over, despite Sergey being a round one destruction artist inside the UFC. But yeah, I'm not tempted by the under there. I think I'm just going to wait for everything and maybe make a play, maybe not. But either way, the pick is Sergey Pavlovich. Co-main event, and what should be the main event of the evening, Aljamain Sterling taking on Brian Ortega. My prediction here is Aljamain Sterling wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And I would really love to see this fight hit the floor. I love to see these guys grappling. I think Brian Ortega's one of the most dangerous submission artists in the UFC, maybe even more dangerous than Aljo. But Aljo is an excellent submission artist himself, really exceptional in a lot of ways. He can make shit happen that's funky, but I think he's also, in general, the better grappler. And I'm not just talking about wrestling, but that too. But once I hit the mat, I think Aljo has, move for move, bit by bit, the better jiu-jitsu. And I envision him taking the back of Brian Ortega and scoring more points down there. But Brian Ortega, even though he hasn't shown it a lot as of late, he got a submission, Cub Swanson all the way to Yair Rodriguez. That was his first submission in 7 years. But he's always been one of the most dangerous submission artists. I'm not going to go through his whole fucking record. Just know that, yeah, I have a ton of respect for the submission threat of Brian Ortega. Primarily with guillotines, which is great, but arm triangle choke if he gets on top of you. He's got triangle chokes. He's T-City for a reason. Triangle chokes and things coming into the UFC. But yeah, the guillotine being his most dangerous weapon, G-City, that's a great thing to have against Aljamain Sterling. Because I think, again, bit by bit, he's losing the grappling to Aljo, but the opportunities will always be there for the opportunistic submission. But if you told me somebody gets submitted, despite Brian Ortega being more dangerous, I'd favor Aljo to get the submission. Just because Aljo is not far behind him in pure submission danger, but I expect him to have the grappling advantage and be taking his back. I think Aljo is going to be physically stronger than Brian Ortega, despite being the ostensibly smaller guy who is coming up from bantamweight. But he handled himself well against Movsar Voyev. Razor thin fight, slight edge to Avoyev in the end, perhaps, but Aljo definitely can beat that guy, whereas nobody else has really been able to prove that. And of course, his win over Calvin Kattar. It's not the greatest win these days, but it was still a shutout over a former top featherweight. Aljo's chin is the biggest concern out of the two of them, even though Brian Ortega was knocked unconscious against Diego Lopez. But then he was knocked conscious again, so he ended up making it to the final bell. But yeah, there's definite doubt with Brian. But the guy who's been finished twice is Aljamain Sterling. Marlon Moraes caught him with a knee that was probably supposed to be a kick or whatever, but he caught him right on the button, and Aljo went dead. And of course, Sugar Sean O'Malley got him a minute into round two. Caught him with a nice long right hand and then didn't let up and ended up putting him away. Although Aljo wasn't unconscious there and he might have kept fighting. But yeah, he's definitely a guy who's been caught before. And Ortega, he's not Mr. Knockout, but it's been there for him against Clay Guida, Frankie Edgar. He's made shit happen. He's definitely got some deceptive danger on the feet. But on the feet, I think Aljamain Sterling wins the kickboxing bout at kicking range. I think Aljo's the superior athlete, and he's always been a really good kicker with his athleticism. And lately, his hands have developed over the last half of his career. But I think in general, he's going to be dancing around Ortega when they're on the feet and try not to step into the pocket. Could be wrong about that. But I think when he does come in, it's going to be to get a hold of Brian Ortega and rip him to the mat. And Aljamain Sterling is freakishly strong, even for a bantamweight. And his submission danger on the ground is incredible. You know, like I said, Brian Ortega with his guillotines might overall be better, but Aljamain Sterling is the Suloev stretch guy, and he's the guy that can get the fucking one arm guillotine and the fucking one arm Kimura like Phil Davis and all that shit that Brian Ortega can't. So I've got Aljamain Sterling winning. I've got him controlling this fight enough to win a decision. Thing with Aljo is he's a big back taker and he's got great control. He's a 10-8 fighter. So that might help me play his point spread at minus points because I do think he's got finishing potential if he's dominant on the ground. And I just talked about the submissions and the knockout on the feet, but as he showed against TJ Dillashaw, he can put guys away on the ground as well. The TKO was always possible. And I was all over that TJ Dillashaw TKO. But yeah, that's always possible on the ground. Him getting a finish. He is very dominant. But I'm picking it to go the distance. I'm picking Brian Ortega to survive on the ground and to try to force action on the feet when he can. But in general, fall victim to the wrestling and the fucking really strong grappling game of Aljamain Sterling. We have Johnny Walker taking on Mingyang Zhang in a 5-round fight, even though this fight should probably have an extra few rounds. I think 7 rounds maybe for this fight. What do you guys think? My prediction for this fight is Mingyang Zhang wins, and I'm going to go with him needing just 1 round to win, and I'll take him winning by round 1 knockout. Having said that, I don't know if I'll bet on him. Maybe I'll wait for the props and play the round 1 finish, but right now his money line isn't worth it. The under isn't worth it at almost 4-1 for under a round and a half. That's not worth it to me, especially with Johnny Walker showing he can fight a little more economically in the last few fights of his. Maybe not few fights, but the last half of his career. But I think in general, if I'm trusting his record, it's going to be a round 1 finish, Mingyang Zhang. And I'm taking it happening by knockout. But if I was to trust everything about his record, I would see that he's been out of round 1 3 times, and he's 0-3 in those fights. I don't know if that's any sort of coincidence or not. But yeah, there's doubt with Mingyang Zhang. He's not the most proven guy. If he gets dragged into a competitive fight with someone who's been there before, like Johnny Walker, I could certainly see him running into trouble. Johnny Walker, he's every bit as dangerous as he ever was, and he's even more vulnerable than he ever was. That's why I'm picking against him. But still, Mingyang Zhang, I think deep waters for him could be a competitive fight that hits round 2. So in a 5-round fight, there's definite upside with somebody who's got the experience of Johnny Walker fighting somebody who's never won a fight outside of round 1. The thing is, of course, he's kicking ass in round 1, kicking ass and taking names. And Johnny Walker, he can be knocked out in round 1, and that's what I'm picking to happen. Mingyang Zhang, his losses, he's been knocked out a few times, knocked unconscious as well. But his losses, all the knockouts, submissions, and even decisions come when he was a kid. His last loss, I believe, happened when he was 21 years old, where he was submitted here. But every other loss is earlier than that, obviously. He was knocked out against Ashkar Moskarov, the great Gatsby of the UFC. If you remember him, he was the guy who inflated his record and lied about reading a bunch of books and shit. But yeah, that guy knocked him unconscious. Ming Yang Zhang was having his way with him early, but he got knocked unconscious there. And Johnny Walker today, he's still every bit as dangerous as he ever was. But I got to give Ming Yang Zhang the benefit of the doubt and think, hey, he lost a bunch as a kid, and he's going to shed all that like Natalia Silva and the current guy we have in front of us, the man we have in front of us, who's now 27 years old as of Saturday. This man is a different person than the kid who was put away early when he was developing his skills. He's got the size and definitely the power to go through the chin of Johnny Walker, and I'm picking him to get it done. But there's a lot of questions with him. So, yeah, even though he's my pick, Johnny Walker at plus 275, I will wait for his props. I think in general he gets the finish, and Johnny Walker's incredibly dangerous in round one, so I'm not married to him getting the finish later. But I do think Johnny Walker or anybody else could potentially exploit Mingyang Zhang after he gets out of round one. You know, it's not just hitting that bell and making it to round two. You have to hurt him and test him and make him breathe hard and all that. But Johnny Walker, he's a guy who's done enough to earn a few sprinkles from me anyway. So yeah, I'm a degenerate. I'll bet on Johnny Walker. That's it. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.